Good morning to our listeners here on Long Island. It's a pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Suffolk Matters, where Suffolk County meets Suffolk AME. So this morning, my guest is Steve Bellone, Suffolk County Executive. Steve, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Dan. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. So I want to start out with something. I always, to some extent, I try and give the listeners, maybe a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And you're someone who got involved in government because you had the ability to do a lot of good things for people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I find there are certain jobs, and elected representatives are definitely one of those types of jobs, where you stop becoming a person to most people and you become the thing that you are. So a lot of your interactions on a day-to-day basis, you're not Steve Bellone the man, you are Steve Bellone, the county executive. Yeah. And then anything that anyone else did or didn't do attached to the administration, it lands squarely on you. And it's a lot. I know to some degree for myself, I deal with that as well. But why don't we talk a little bit about just your history, why you got involved in government, why, the good things you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's always interesting because when you get into this public position, or like you in a position of leadership, people are looking at you as that person. And some, it gets interesting, with your family and your wife sometimes when, people always view you as county executive. And of course, they don't view me as county executive. In fact, they're not that impressed by me being county executive. So look, I got into public life. I've always had an interest in history and government. And I had a decision. I was interested in journalism. I was interested in government. And ultimately, I decided I wanted to go into public service because I wanted to do something. I wanted to be a part of helping to improve people's lives in our community. And that's what's really great about being in county government. It really is, you're at the local level and you're impacting people's lives. And the work we do, I was talking to somebody today about this. I'd mentioned about public service, that, we have so many people in county government who do so many different jobs.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're all part of the same mission.
Yep.
We're all part of one mission, which is to help the people of this county, to lift them up, to deliver great services to them, and to make our community a better place. Sure. And, we're all part of that team.
Yeah. And, to some extent, the problems that occur on any level in government, if they could be solved easily, they will be solved easily.
Right.
And the ones that are most difficult to handle, the ones that require the most finesse, the most thought, the time, that's the stuff that lands on your desk. Yeah,
and the challenges, and that's the stuff I like, and honestly, that's the stuff I should be doing, right? Sure. That's, what I'm there for, and, you have to be in a position where you're going to lead, and, you know that very well in your position, too. You have to, when you're the person at the top of the organization, it's your responsibility to take on those tough challenges. And the key is to try to do it in the right way. There are no, somebody once said, in those toughest issues, that, you could make a decision either way and really only know at the end of the day if it was the right decision based on what actually happens.
Yes.
Because they're that close sometimes. Right. And you have issues like that, and you've got to work through them and do the best you can to be as transparent as possible, bring people along, build a consensus on issues, but move forward. I'm a big believer in, and, I'm afraid we're not doing this in our country today.
Right.
But I certainly believe, and we've tried to do this in the administration, we have to solve problems. We cannot be in government and not be in the business of actually solving problems. Sure. And what happens is you just let these problems pile up because you're not working together. You're not trying to build a consensus. People are sort of in their ideological camps. And that does no one any good. It doesn't do the people that we represent any good. And it doesn't do the government as an institution any good because it tends to make people have even less faith in government then.
Sure. And, there is a specific point I want to bring up to that end, but we'll do that a little later in the show. Instead, I want to talk about some of the initiatives that you've been working on. An easy one to mention right out of the gate is the Suffolk County Marathon and benefiting veterans. And it's something not only do you believe in, but other organizations believe in. AME has been a proud sponsor for some time, and a number of organizations, because, one, it's a great event. You get a lot of attendance, a lot of people come down, and it's a great benefit to the community.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Amy has been there from the very beginning on this initiative, and it really is. It's a great one. It's a way for people to come together in the community around an event that is about health. It's about economic development. Highlighting our downtowns. But as you mentioned, Dan, it's about also recognizing our veterans and raising money for them as well, and providing resources to the organizations that are out there in our community that are providing for our veterans. And without the help of sponsors like AME, and you, as I said, you guys have been there from the very beginning, we wouldn't be able to do that. And we live in the county with more veterans than any county in the state of New York. That is really significant. As I always say, it's one of the things that makes Suffolk County such a special place to live, that we have this many of our heroes living here, because so few people in our country actually put on a uniform and serve.
Right.
And so for us, here at home, not-for-profit organizations, government, average citizens, we have an obligation to make sure we're doing everything we can to assist them and to help them. And the marathon is a part of doing that. So it's really a great event.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. And, with veterans and so many people in Suffolk County, and definitely so many people in Suffolk County government, altruism is the word. It is, first and foremost, the benefit for someone else, to put someone else above yourself.
Right.
And I think that's a great way of celebrating that spirit that lives in Suffolk County.
And that's what they've done for us. And this is just a small way we can give that back a little bit.
Sure. So, there are other initiatives that you've been working on, and specifically, getting into the SHARE program, and how that's going to impact so many lives. And to some extent, you never want to be in a situation where you have to consider, it's not a question of if, but when.
Right.
But, taking every step possible, it's not safe to hope for the best without preparing for the worst.
Right.
This was an initiative, I think, that kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, in government, it's our obligation. Public safety is one of our top, if not our top priority in government. And, we have to anticipate what may happen. And unfortunately, in our country today, we have to acknowledge that the possibility of an active shooter scenario happening, anywhere in the county, but particularly concerning in our schools, where we've seen this a number of times before. The thought of sending kids to school and, they being in danger of becoming victims of an active shooter, that's a terrifying thing for parents. I send 3 young kids to school as well. So I understand this issue. And so, we've worked very hard to be as innovative as we can and on the cutting edge when it comes to this issue. And the SHARE program that you mentioned, then utilizing technology in a way that will allow the Suffolk County Police Department to have essentially eyes on the school, access the closed circuit TV cameras inside a school, security cameras, if there is an emergency like that, so that when those calls start coming in and that information starts coming to our 911 center operators who do such extraordinary work, that we're able to get that information out and to be able to provide as much real, timely, accurate information as possible. Because in these situations, every second counts when it comes to trying to save a life.
Absolutely. Part of what you touched on there, the program's important, but I think it was smart to use existing infrastructure.
Right.
The expense to put something like this into play, all entirely on the county dime, would have been cost prohibitive. So a creative solution of finding a way to tie all these existing systems together and provide public safety at such a critical moment.
That's right. One of the expectations people have and that they should have of us is that we're going to act as responsibly as we can with their tax dollars, and we're going to work to make government as efficient as possible. And we all know that we have a very decentralized government structure on Long Island. A lot of different types of government, uh, but when we come together and collaborate together, even though we're separate governments, that's good for the people we serve. That's good for taxpayers. And this is an example. Sometimes as institutions, you have a tendency to want to have your own thing,
Right.
have it be siloed off. But that's not in the best interest of the people we serve. And we're I think in the county really working hard to break down those silos and those barriers. And the share program is a good example of that.
Yeah. And the economy of scale also, when you talk about big corporations being able to offer certain types of things to their employees because they employ so many people. I think that when you talk about something like shared services, I feel like we're kind of touching up against that
Sure.
now, so we might as well just get into it. That's the opportunity for all the different municipalities in Suffolk County to kind of pool their resources in a way that keeps people working, but keeps people working smart and efficiently.
That's right.
An easy example, and it's just me throwing it out there, if a town needs, 10 new vehicles, it's in their budget and everything else, but the county's acquiring vehicles also. And let's say a number of towns are getting vehicles
That's right.
and the county, if we all were to just get on the same page, we'd have more purchasing power. And I think that's the heart of the program.
I think that's right. Having municipalities all working together in ways that we leverage each other's resources, our talents, our assets, to help deliver services more efficiently and more cost effectively. That's a win-win-win for all of us. So, when we talk about the SHARE program, obviously our school districts, they've done a tremendous job partnering, working with us. They have their school safety plans that they establish at a local level. So that's been a great partnership. What you just mentioned, Dan, I think is significant. Pooling those purchasing resources. That is something we can do that does not involve any public policy choice that a government needs to make at its own level. It's literally just doing what's necessary to get our purchasing people working together to get the language consistent. And, by the way, none of which is just simple. Everybody has their own rules, their own regulations, it takes work to do that.
Sure.
But the end result is that you're still delivering an outstanding product for the public, but at a lower cost. That's it. It's just more efficient, just less money. And that's what we need to be doing. And that is, as you highlighted, the kind of work that's happening right now in Suffolk County.
Sure. And just from the labor perspective, you and I have spent a lot of time talking, and other people in your administration have been talking with us about this specific program to make sure that we implement it in a way that doesn't start causing inequities with workers, making sure that everybody has their job protections in place. Yep. That not someone isn't being asked to do something that they're not qualified to do, or do some work in an area where there could be a danger to them they don't realize. And there's a lot that goes into this common sense solution of pooling resources, but getting that hard work done has to start with the willingness to sit down and talk, and that's something that we've had here.
Right, and I really appreciate that. Right, because it's not simple. You just think about, we're a large, complex government in Suffolk County, one of the largest governments, obviously, in the state of New York. But $3 billion budget, 10,000 employees. This is 1.5 million people that we serve. This is a huge government. It's a huge organization. So it's complicated even within the organization when you're trying to do things. So that communication is very important. Now think about having to try to leverage and partner hundreds of other municipalities and governmental organizations. Not simple. No. It requires a lot of communication, a lot of work. But if that commitment is there, as we've done here in the county, and we have established a lot of great partnerships with other municipalities and other levels of government, the rewards of that are huge.
Sure.
Huge for our ability to deliver services and huge for taxpayers. So
and I think that's the most important thing. And I think that everybody wants to see when someone in your position, the people you work with, have the ability to make a change to keep services at the level they are, or even improve them at a cost savings. everybody's looking for that deal, quote unquote, when they go out shopping. But,
Right, exactly.
saving a dollar or stretching a dollar inside of government has a big impact on everyone also.
That's exactly right. And again, as I said, people expect us that we're going to do everything we can to make government work well.
Right.
And, I've said this before, I'm someone who believes in the power of government to change people's lives. It is important in our lives. We are the government. We come together
Right.
as the people of this county and then beyond to deliver the things that we all need.
Right.
And therefore, we have an obligation, because we know what a difference that we're making in people's lives.
Yep.
We have an obligation to make sure that we're operating that as effectively as possible, because to the extent we're not, it means we're not doing as good a job we can helping the people we serve.
Sure. And, to that end, when you talk communication, I remember in my days and working in DPW, and we were called DPW sanitation, which was actually sewers.
Right.
We were the engineering side of building new sewer systems, new treatment plants, pump stations, and we would get calls often. Hey, I don't remember which day you're coming to pick up my garbage.
Right.
This leads me to the 311 call center, which,
Right.
at its very heart, it's that one number that you call to kind of vet these types of questions. And that requires a whole network of people, a web of people across all different departments in the county to vet these questions, get people answers, and mobilize when work needs to be done.
Exactly. 311, originally it was a public safety initiative. New York City had started utilizing 311. Martin O'Malley down in Baltimore, Maryland had incorporated for just general constituent services. And this is something that I had worked to start in Babylon as a town. I know John Kamen, who's deputy county executive, done in North Hempstead. But we're actually the first county in the state to move forward with the 311 system. And at its heart, as you indicated, this is about delivering effective services for people, providing better service. So, in your point, you were suggesting sometimes people don't know where to call.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of different governments,
Sure.
a lot of different problems, a lot of different issues that people may encounter. And the example I use is when people, confront a pothole and,
Right.
they run over a big hot pothole and it's a problem and they want to get it solved. They are not thinking about, when they run over that pothole, am I on a village road, a town road, a county road, a state road, and which number should I call? They're thinking, I want to get this pothole fixed.
Yes.
So now you have a number, 311, you can call. And look, if it's a county road, we'll dispatch it. We'll put the service order and we'll put it out. And, our DPW employees, they'll get that pothole filled.
Yep.
If it's not, if it's another government, if it's town, village, or state, we will direct it there where it needs to be. So you as the consumer, you as the constituent, don't have to think about, who do I need to track down to try to get this problem fixed. You have a number you can call. So that's a big aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think that's an asset for everyone. Again, the first thing that came to mind when you went through that list, who's my congressman again? Obviously the pothole's not a congressional issue, but the fact of the matter is, I can't fault people for not knowing, the office number of every elected representative in their district, and knowing the difference between a town and a county.
Yeah, that's not something they have posted on their fridge,
Right.
And they're thinking, okay, I have a problem. Which one of these should I call?
Right.
So we want to make it as easy as possible. And, we were talking about 911 operators before.
Yeah.
The other big aspect of the 311 system is we're taking calls that are non-emergency and, putting them into the 311 system. And that's, our 911 operators, they do, as you know, yeoman's work. We had that storm not too long ago, that thunderstorm that came up all of a sudden, that was absolutely insane. People were running for cover. All of a sudden, I was enjoying a beautiful summer on Long Island, and then this storm comes through, and it was really a devastating storm. But our 911 operators inundated with calls, and they just handle business. They just take care of it. But a lot of times, the calls that come in are non-emergency calls. So now you have this other avenue to direct non-emergency calls, which is helpful to our 911 operators.
Yeah, and I mean, those operators, generally speaking, they're dealing with, and the folks over at Fire Rescue also, they're dealing with phone calls from people on the worst days of their lives. So they've got a tremendous amount of stress in trying to get someone to calmly give them information so they can dispatch help that's necessary. And in between those calls, they might be getting a call about, like you said, a storm.
Right.
So having this other resource, I think, will be great.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to talk a little bit about something we touched on early.
Yeah.
And we talk about how sometimes government gets compartmentalized and there's certain ideologies that kind of end up in play. And very recently, I saw a story in Newsday where there were a number of legislators and legislative hopefuls talking about canceling the red light program, the red light camera program, I should say.
Right.
And, I have two thoughts. One thought is, someone making an important decision should be able to get the information necessary so they can make the decision. So when they call on a consultant to give them information, I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
Where I have an issue, where I feel like maybe there's a level of irresponsibility, is saying we're going to take revenue that makes this government work, that provides all these services like the ones we talked about this morning, and we're going to defund that stuff. We're going to provide no solution. And, you and I have discussed many things over the years. And, when I say I have a problem, I generally also say, but I think we can solve it this way, or I think we can solve it that way.
Right.
And if that's ultimately what we do, great. If not, we brainstorm. But I think that there's a level of responsibility necessary rather than a newspaper stunt that's maybe popular with people.
Right.
We've got to look at the other aspects of these things.
Yeah, I think, look, you always have to separate the government from the politics. Sometimes politics gets in the way of governing. Nobody likes getting traffic tickets. Nobody likes getting speeding tickets.
No.
It is what it is. But, traffic safety is a huge issue, particularly in the era of distracted driving today. And, the red light camera program started long before I got here, and we've been running it for a number of years now. And, look, our program is about public safety. Yes, of course. Is there a fine attached to it? Yes. Every enforcement program has a fine attached to it. It wouldn't be enforcement if it did not have a fine attached with it. But there's a very easy way not to ever pay a red light ticket, and that is to not go through a red light.
Sure.
That's it. It's a very simple way to do it. But what every analysis has showed is that the program works, which intuitively makes sense.
Sure.
It has significantly reduced accidents that are life-threatening and that can cause serious injury or harm, and that's a very good thing. Now, what we've seen over the last number of years is a rise in fender benders.
Right.
But we know that distracted driving is an epidemic around the country. It's not just happening here; it's happening everywhere. So, look, some people see advantage in attacking a program like this. But if you look at our fines associated with the red light camera program, they're significantly less than neighboring municipalities.
Sure.
This is about public safety and making sure we're reducing the number of injuries. You drive along our roadways. It is haunting the number of times you will see flowers and pictures on the sides of the roads all over. And it is a terrible thing to see. But, our job is, as I said earlier, public safety is our top priority. Sure. Our job is to make the roadways as safe as possible.
Sure. And, it is also not difficult to find when driving, especially at night, the glow on someone's face as they are hiding the fact that they're texting while they're driving on the expressway. This is problematic.
Not hiding it well.
Right. And, these are problems. Again, like I say, the difficult problems tend to end up on your desk, and finding a solution to these issues that could affect anyone. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. You're on the road with everyone else, regardless of what they think and how they are.
That's exactly right.
To raise awareness, and again, through a deterrent program like the red light camera.
Yeah, and as I said, the program started well before I got here. If the program didn't work from a public safety perspective, we wouldn't do it.
Sure.
We would end the program. But, of course, it does. Every analysis has shown that. And, it's just one component of our, entire traffic safety enforcement regimen that we engage in.
So, we're winding down on time, but I just want to touch on one other item, an initiative that you've been involved with since the start of your career here as a county executive, and that's specifically, some of the infrastructure needs in Suffolk County, and specifically relating to ways to mitigate water pollution.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about, any advancements you've had there, and how that's all going.
So water quality is absolutely critical to us on Long Island. I think every Long Islander intuitively understands that. Number one, we're an island, so water is all around us. It is everywhere. It's our bays, our rivers, our streams. The ocean is around us, the sound. The water we drink is beneath our feet in our aquifers. We rely on water for our tourism industry, $5.7 billion tourism industry underpinned by water. It's our economy. It's our heritage and quality of life. I mean, people live on Long Island for the summers. They, with the boating, the fishing, going down to the beaches. All of these things are a part of who we are. And so if we're not protecting water quality, we are literally undermining both our present and future. And so, we've had decades of nitrogen pollution going into our waterways, and now working with, a really incredibly talented team in the Department of Health and the Department of Public Works, we're moving forward with innovative programs like the Septic Improvement Program that's providing grants to homeowners to give them the ability to afford to replace their old cesspool or septic with a new one at about the same cost it would cost to replace with the old technology, one that is preventing pollution from going into our waterways. So that program is great. And as you mentioned, sewers, we have hundreds of millions of dollars now that we're able to secure thanks to the support of Governor Cuomo and New York State and our federal partners, that we're now going to be moving forward with and putting into the ground around 4 different river corridors in Suffolk County that's going to significantly reduce our pollution impact. So we have a very aggressive water quality program, and I would say it's one of the not only one of the top priorities of the administration, it's one of the keys for the future of our region, that we are successful in our efforts here, and we're doing some great things with it.
Yeah, I was very encouraged to see some of the new projects popping up, using the low-pressure sewer systems.
Right.
They solve a lot of engineering problems while handling the issue of sewage treatment and nitrogen abatement. So
that's exactly right. And look, people want to be a part of the solution. They want to figure out how to do this, but it also has to be workable and affordable for them. And that's why we work together to put programs that make sense and that homeowners can actually afford to do.
Sure. So, I always ask a bunch of questions that concern me. That's what I end up doing here. But I like to extend the opportunity to any time I have a guest on to just ask them, is there something I didn't touch on today that you'd like to get out in the world?
Well, I just appreciate, first of all, it's great to be on the show. I think you do a great job on the show.
Yeah.
It's one thing being president of AME, but, hosting a radio show, you do a great job with it, really. I would just say the partnership is really important. When things are going well in a government, management and labor, of course, have to come together to work through different issues. But again, it gets back to we all have the same mission. It's about together, how do we serve the people best? And when that relationship is working well, we're doing the best that we can for the people of our county. And so I really appreciate the partnership that we've had.
Sure. And, just for our listeners, they aren't always easy conversations.
Right.
There are times where
Exactly.
Where I'm coming from the perspective I'm coming from, you're coming from the perspective that you're coming from, and we've got to solve a major problem. And my focus will always tend to be on the workforce.
Yep.
Your focus will be, amongst other things, also on the taxpayer. And we've got to find equitable solutions that are fair to both sides that get things done.
That's exactly right. And what I appreciate and what I try to do is, yes, I have a broad, sort of responsibility of things that I have to do, and I come from that perspective. But I care about our workers, and I care about the things you're thinking about. And I know while you're of course, always in a position where you're advocating for the workforce, you're also a resident of this county. You're thinking about the bigger picture as well. And, and when that happens, you tend to be able to get to the best solution possible under the circumstances.
Absolutely. So our guest this morning was Steve Bellone, County Executive here in Suffolk County. Steve, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be with you.
And for our listeners, we'll see you again next week.